Kanya Suraksha is essentially an organization that helps and provides helps and enables protection for women and is again to, and promotes activity against rape and sexual assault. I'm Ishika, and I'm one of the representatives of Lifestyle Fellowship International School.
The first question is, what inspired you to found the organization Safe City?
So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is Elsa Marie De Silva. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Dot Foundation. In December 2012, we had this horrific incident that took place where a young woman was gang raped on a bus in Delhi. You may know her as Nirbhaya, but at the time, we were all shocked by that incident. I recall sitting in Mumbai, everywhere I went, whether it was a professional meeting or a personal meeting, everyone was just talking about this horrific incident. It was on every news channel, it was in every paper, and there were candlelight vigils, there were protest demonstrations. And it got me thinking about all the various different incidents I had faced, either growing up or at work, where I witnessed masturbation in public spaces, I was groped, I was commented upon, and even at work, I had some cases where I experienced sexual harassment. So all that came rushing back, and more so, I found that my friends too had stories to share, which until then, I don't recall any one of us talking to each other or even voicing our concerns. So this incident was like an inflection point, if you will, where it opened up a Pandora's box, and that's when I decided I had to do something concrete about this issue I wanted to contribute to, but more than putting up on social media and participating in these demonstrations, I wanted to work on this issue in a very, very detailed way. And so I launched Safe City along with some friends. Safe City is a crowd map where anyone can document their incident of sexual violence, abuse, harassment anonymously. And these are then collated as location based trends visualized on a map. And honestly, it is a different way of approaching the problem because you view it very visually. It's collated at the location level. You can understand the patterns and trends that are emerging. And sexual violence, as you now know, is not one kind of violence, it's a range of abuses in varying degrees. So you have a spectrum of abuse, but we tend to talk about it like it's all one kind. It's all rape or it's all sexual assault. But if we were able to understand the different forms of it, then we would be able to also design solutions to address those very specific forms of abuse.
Okay, so you talked about setting up Safe City. So, what were the major difficulties and challenges you faced while setting it up?
Great. So during that time, I said December 2012, I was still working in the aviation industry. I had a long career up to that point between two of India's largest airlines, Jet Airways and then Kingfisher. I was vice president network planning, where I was overseeing 500 daily flights. And Kingfisher had just gone through a financial downturn and had ceased operations, but we were working on recovery plans. So I had to decide for myself what is it that I want to do. And this incident really came at a moment in my life where I was evaluating uh, exactly that question. What do I want to do for the next 20 years? Do I want to continue in corporate? Do I want to continue in aviation? Do I want to get another job? Do I want to work on a social issue, which was women's rights or children's rights, things that were close to my heart? And I felt this was an opportune movement to make that shift. Of course, the incident with Jyoti Singh was a catalyst in helping me make that decision. So I quit my job and I started this organization. At the time, it was not an organization, it was just a crowd map. And it was an experiment. Of course, we didn't realize it was going to take up all of my time. So the challenges at the very start was, more existential for me. Is this really something that I want to do, that I want to commit my life to and my entire time to? Giving up a career after 20 years and when you've reached your peak is not very easy, but I felt it was time to do that. The second one was I knew nothing about the social sector. I came from the aviation industry, that's all I knew, and it was like a bubble. So I had to recreate my networks, understand how the sector works because it's very, very different. And so it was a steep learning curve. And I had to unlearn and relearn and learn a lot of new things, make new friends. And working for yourself is very different from working from others. So obviously, how do you raise capital? How do you, create a self-sustaining organization? All these things had to be thought of and thought of very carefully because you don't just start something and abandon it. You have to be sure that this is something that you want to continue with. So those were major challenges. Then the other challenge was about the issue, are we really adding value? How can this crowdsourced data be of importance and value, even though we were not working on individual cases, but looking at the problem from trends and patterns at that location level. And at the time, that was about 7.5 years ago, crowdsourced data was not, uh, you know, an accepted data set. People had not heard about this method, so they didn't really know about the value of the data. So it's been a challenge in that sense, getting it accepted. But today, it's a very, very well accepted data set. And it's a complementary data set to all the other data sets that are available out there.
That was very informative. So what change do you expect to see in 5 years with the efficient work of the Red Dot Foundation?
So that's a hard question, and it's always been a hard question for me to say what happens in 5 years. But what I would like to see is a reduction in sexual violence, a better understanding of this topic, more resources and funding being allocated to this topic, which I think it's very under resourced, and more acceptance of this kind of data for partnerships. So, as an organization, we are looking towards building our partnership pool with a variety of organizations, whether they are civil society, non-profits, government organizations, police, transportation authorities, etc. And then, of course, helping women and girls feel more confident breaking their silence and using our platform to record and document what's happening with them.
Let's move on to the next question. What influenced you to make a massive shift from the aviation industry to addressing the issue of sexual assault?
So, everyone at some point in their life makes decisions that deeply impact their lives, right? And I felt the timing was right. 2012 for me was a landmark year. Of course, what happened to Jyoti Singh happened in December, but I would say that for a couple of years, I was already thinking, what next? And I was trying to figure out my purpose, trying to, because I had been there, done that. I'd spent a long time in the industry. I started my career as a flight attendant and I slowly made my way up the career ladder. I had various portfolios within those 20 years, all of which were exciting and very satisfying. And I had a lot of fun, both learning and doing the work. But I felt I wanted to do more. And what actually qualified as doing more was something that I didn't really know at the time. I knew deep down that I wanted to work with children and with women, but how I was going to do that, and if it was going to be done after office hours as a volunteer during the weekends, or I mean, I didn't know what shape it was going to take. But when this whole thing with Kingfisher happened, where the airline went through a financial downturn and eventually shut, I kind of was on this personal journey where I wanted to experiment, and I felt this was the right time, because if the airline had not shut down, I probably would never have quit my job to do something like this. It's a big risk that one takes. But when you are given this opportunity, you can afford to take a pause. Similar like COVID, everybody is on a pause. How you use that pause is totally up to you. So I decided I have nothing to lose. I can take a break, because I started my career at the age of 19, and I had worked really hard for 20 years, and I wanted to take a break, and I wanted to do something different. I wanted to feel challenged. And if it didn't work out, I could always go back. So, yeah, I decided to give myself that opportunity, and I took the plunge.
That's great. So, could you brief us on a few programs executed by Safecity?
Sure. So one is we have the tech platform, which currently is the web app, but in middle of November, we'll be relaunching our mobile app as well. You can document your experience of sexual violence on it. So we have broken it down by category: verbal, non-verbal, physical, and of course the extreme forms, sexual assault and rape at that end. So one is that data collection and usage of that data to inform people. It's available in the open source format. So researchers use it, police use it, and other nonprofits also use it. Second is we do a lot of workshops, because what we realized in our journey is that in order to help people report sexual and gender-based violence, they have to first understand it. And there's a very poor understanding, simply because we tend to think it's part of our daily routine and that we are meant to accept it and deal with it. But when we explain to them the spectrum of abuse, their rights under Indian law, and the remedial measures available to them under this law, then it gives them the confidence to take some action. And one of those actions could be documenting this experience on the Safecity platform. The second action could be, how can I now engage my community, with whether it's friends, like y'all have your friends doing these podcasts, or even your college authorities, to make spaces safer. You could also go to your parents and show them the data from your own neighborhood and ask them, how do you feel about it? Do you accept this, or do you want to do something about it? And then the community decides how to take it forward. We also work in communities. We run a youth campus ambassador program across various colleges in India, but we also work with partner NGOs in communities on the ground, helping them think through this data that they collect in their neighborhoods, and then facilitating those interactions with either the police or elected representatives, village elders, community elders, etc., to find those solutions. So this is broadly what we do. We do workshops in schools, colleges, communities, and also in corporates, to help them understand say, what is a safe workspace and how can they prevent sexual harassment at the workplace. And the newest part of our work is influencing policymakers when it comes to urban planning and design, because there is a clear impact on urban planning and design with the comfort of the perpetrator to perpetrate those crimes against women in public spaces.
I'm sure that must be very helpful. However, in one of your talks with Gillian D'Souza, you you addressed that the future is female, And it is time to cut the chains of patriarchy. Can you tell us how to explain an Orthodox family the importance of removing this patriarchal mindset?
Thank you for that. So, one is patriarchy is deeply entrenched in all of us, whether male or female. And it is further reinforced by media, again, bombarded through ads, through films, Bollywood films, and other films, and songs, and in jokes, the sexist jokes that do the rounds on WhatsApp, etc. So, not just an Orthodox family, but every family has to have conversations around this. And I believe the future is female because look at you, young girls. Y'all are already having these conversations. I don't recall us having these conversations when we were younger. So, the exposure that you now get through your education system, but also through the internet, where you are able to have these conversations maybe with strangers online, maybe access conversations that are already happening that can inform you. Now what do you need to do and what do I need to do is in our own circles, in our own families, call out the sexism, call out the misogyny, call out the patriarchy, and do so not in a confrontational manner because you will turn them off, but gently help them understand what exactly are we talking about. We're talking about equality. So do you have a level playing field as your brother? Is the other rules the same for him and for you? And why are they different? Why is he not allowed to express emotions on the scale, which are seen as feminine? And why are you not allowed to do things that are otherwise associated as masculine? For example, maybe wearing shorts or cycling or playing with the boys after you've reached puberty, etc. So these are small things. During COVID-19, how many of the fathers have actually helped the mothers in household care work, especially when the maids were not coming home to do the work? So you can see it right there and you can start calling it out. You can start educating your parents. You can start educating the elders. There's a lot of content out there on the internet. You can show them a video and say, hey, why don't we have a conversation? And why is it only the mothers who do all the stuff?
Um, So, in many interviews, we see young students saying that they've been taught that rape is not only the rapist's fault but also the victim's. How do you suggest we change this thought process believed by the masses and how to overcome this issue when few politicians think similarly?
The only way to change this is through education and conversation. So, education in every school, in every college, on consent culture, on respect, on healthy relationships, on understanding what constitutes sexual violence, on understanding the laws in India. We have the laws. You remember the Delhi boys' locker room case where they didn't realize they were breaking the law. They thought they were having fun. But it was a serious breach of the legislation. So, education is very important. And then conversations like this. I hope your friends all start thinking more deeply about this topic and are comfortable also asking their questions because it's hard. We need to create more spaces for dialogue and create more spaces where one can ask questions. Because if you can't ask your parents and you can't ask your teachers and your principal, who do you ask? Maybe your friends don't know the answers. You need to have adults who can explain to you whether it is right or wrong, whether it is your right, for example, or not. And to blame a person who is a victim and a survivor of such abuse is incorrect because it is that person who was violated against their will. Rape is a violation, it's a personal violation. If your house was robbed whilst you were sleeping in it, can the police say that you were to be blamed? So then why is it that in this kind of a crime, it is the victim and survivor who is blamed and not the perpetrator?
That was very insightful. So, the next question is, what message would you like to give to all the victims out there facing the wrath of sexual assault who are oppressed by family members in the fear of shame?
I would like to say you're not alone and it is not your fault. So please don't think of yourself as a victim. Get help. You can reach out. There are a lot of mental health counseling services. There are a lot of nonprofits working on this issue. If you can't find them, write to us and we will redirect you to the ones that we work with. You can find the help you need. And if nothing else, at least find a circle of support. And we've started Safe Circle. Every Fridays, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we have a safe space, which is a listening circle for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. You're most welcome to join it.
So, like you said, the next question is related to something you said earlier. Like you said, that Bollywood contributes majorly to this. So, recently I was scrolling through other TV channels where I came across Bollywood promoting the male protagonist to burn the women's clothes because they were termed provocative and society would judge. So, how do you think Bollywood, especially directors, producers, writers, should alter their view and alter the cast in order to have a better society?
The only way they are going to alter their views if we, consumers of their products, don't support them. I think it's high time that we are discerning. I think it's high time that we, as consumers of their products, are discerning and choose which films to watch and avoid and ban these sexist films. Call them out, just like you're calling out, the misogyny and the patriarchy and the sexism within your circles. We have to call these out, and there has to be some rules and guidelines because they can't be making films like this. And it isn't like this hasn't been done before, right? So we need to make sure that they have some kind of gender sensitivity when they portray women. Otherwise you need to not patronize their films.
So what is the common error made by households while bringing up their children, which leads to victim blaming and rapes?
how do they how do they treat their sons versus their daughters? Is it equal? That's the first thing. And then, are the parents the role models? Or they themselves promote the sexism and misogyny and patriarchy within the homes? Look at your mom. Is she adhering to gender stereotypes and norms? Is she expected to adhere to these gender stereotypes and norms? So the change begins with us at home. Let's start that.
Okay, many people claim that feminism is not our culture. Where to draw a line between Indian culture and feminism?
Is there a standardized Indian culture? First of all, we use the words Indian culture, but there is no standard Indian culture. If you ask your own friends what is the culture within your home, you will find differences. So, A, there is no standardized Indian culture. B, what is feminism? I feel it's not understood. So, feminism is wanting equality, social, and environmental and cultural, right? That's what you want. It's not about putting women ahead of men. It's about equality. Are we allowed a level playing field? Is it the same for men, women, and other genders? Do you have equal pay? Do you have the same rights? Do you have a world free of violence? And if that is not so, then it needs to change. Because our constitution, under Indian law, guarantees the right to equality, isn't it? So it's our constitutional right, but are we allowed to live it? That's all we're asking. And as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the recently departed Supreme Court Justice of the United States, said, we're not asking for anything. We're just asking our male brethren to remove their foot off our necks so we can breathe.
Absolutely, we completely agree. So, for the to end up this meeting, we want to give a brief about what Kanya Suraksha is. So, Kanya Suraksha essentially is based on a organization in Delhi called She is Against Rape, and we have various projects going on, giving out rape whistles for a better place in society. So, what do you think about Kanya Suraksha, and how do you suggest we improve?
So we need all kinds of people and all kinds of efforts to end violence against women and girls, right? But we can't do it alone. We need men and boys. So I would highly recommend that you include boys in your group. And only giving out rape whistles is not going to end rape. What is that whistle going to do? I don't know about you, but I carry a handbag, and if I put a whistle in my handbag, I'm never going to find it. So I don't know whether a whistle is something that will work for me. However, you need all kinds of solutions. So maybe for some, the whistle will work. But I would highly encourage that you, as ninth standard students, start engaging with your male counterparts. Get them to think differently, because it is a generation that will change the way we look at such violence. And it was these young men and young women in your age group that can really make the difference. I know it sounds impossible, but y'all are very active. Y'all are very active for climate change, for example. Y'all are very socially and environmentally conscious. So why not educate yourselves on this issue and think differently from the adults around you? What the adults are doing may not necessarily be 100% correct, but you can be that change. As I said, it starts at home, right? These young boys can also start questioning their parents as to why the girls, their sisters, are being treated differently. And they can say, I do not support this. And they can start calling it out as well, right? They can stop indulging in locker room talk, or the furthering sexism amongst their peers, educating each other, and calling out the misogyny, which is really hard for sometimes girls to call out when it's a gang of boys. So I would say engage them.
That was extremely insightful. Thank you so much for your time. And we really appreciate having this interview with you. We too got to know a lot. We got very important feedback on how to improve, as well as
Thank,
improve Kanya Suraksha.
thank you. Can I ask you a question?
Sure, sure.
Have you all gone through any gender sensitivity training?
No.
So then maybe that's something that you all can start.
Yes,
Organize in your school, bring your friends. We can do it for you.
that is actually one of the projects that are going on right now.
Very good.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. And if there's any way that we can help you, let us know. And of course, please document what's happening to you on our crowd map. Also, for International Day of the Girl Child, which was yesterday, we have launched campaign where up to the 31st of October, you can send in your picture and your artwork on what action you've taken, and this certainly qualifies as an action. So each of you can send in something, and we are going to give out prizes for the 3 best stories, and this is in partnership with the Consulate General of Sweden in Mumbai. So I'm going to send it to you. Please circulate it to your friends and do send in your entries. Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.